Thanks very much, everyone. And in the words of Stephanie Bullen, we're going to change it up a gear because we're talking about trucks. And there's a bit of a quiz first, and none of my MLA colleagues are allowed to answer the question. So there's two right questions. Sorry, try again. There's two right answers, and if you give me a third answer, you get to go on a date with Patrick. So you probably won't buy for the third one, but we'll give it a go. So give me two things that aren't delivered by a truck. They're very sought after, these caps. Yep, correct. Absolutely. What's the next one? A baby. What's the next one? Pardon? Oh. Yeah, that's a date with Patrick, sorry. You might want to renege on that one. But yes, thank you for that. Come on. There's lots of smart people in this room. What is it? It's animal related. Can you lift that document on the table there, Elizabeth? Under the... No. Yeah. Yep. Animals that aren't fit to load. All right. Oh, okay, I'll wear it. I can hardly wait. All right. So down to the serious business now. So in the words of Patrick again this morning, he's saying that the ABSF is the organism. Let's term transport as the extracellular matrix of what we're all about in this room, because we all need a truck. So based on the NLIS movements of last year, there was 65 million sheep, cattle and goats moved, and that doesn't account for a lot of the paddock-to-paddock movements that are happening on farms and on stations. We've now had the lesson that livestock's an essential part of this organism, where we are today, and we're going to come under increased scrutiny because we're very visible. And it was interesting to see that the ranking for livestock transport in this current materiality matrix has not changed. So we've got work to do. So we know what the risk of getting it wrong is. We've seen, and it's very raw, what's happened with the live sheep trade, and we don't have time on our side. It's all about us being transparent, visibility and accountable for what we do as a supply chain, of which transport's an essential part of that. We know how quickly one poor animal welfare incident can impact on the supply chain, and we've all got phones and everyone else has got phones, so we've got to be on the front foot, we're visible and we're essential. So again, you're going to hear me talk about preparation and the impact of preparation. We don't have a silver bullet, and this is why we've got to continually work together. As transporters, so I'm wearing my transporter hat to some degree, we are cradling the baby we are given. We are at the mercy of our producers and our agents doing the right thing by us. And by that I mean we need to ensure that there's absolute clarity, there's communication through our supply chain, and preparation is key. Piss poor preparation leads to piss poor performance. It's on the back of our truck, they're going to see it. It's very different to seeing animals grazing in the paddock, but when there's shit and wee, excuse the language, coming out of the backs of the trucks, it's different. That's exactly right. It's the transporter that's seen to be the big baddie. So we really have to work together. Now, there's just a little video that if you could play, just to share about what we've been working on.
It's probably the first time that the grazing production industry has come together with the transport industry to solve some common problems that we that we see across the industry. We all have to recognise that for the majority of Australians, all they see of our industry is those sheep or cattle or goats going past their windows or on their roads. We just need to make sure that what they see is acceptable.
So the Transport Hub has been developed as a single source, one-stop shop for all things related to livestock road transport. There's nothing that exists that pools and brings all that information together. So it will range from practical hands-on information to scientific information, but a core part of the Transport Hub will be information around preparation for livestock for their intended journey and all the things that you need to consider. So the Transport Hub's been developed for our producers, so if they're consigning cattle or different classes of cattle to feedlots or sale yards or direct to abattoirs, there's an information hub on there around all things that they need to consider when preparing animals for their intended journey. The Transport Hub's been developed with industry, by industry, so there's been strong stakeholder engagement right throughout the supply chain. We've been also working with the Australian Livestock and Rural Transporters Association as well as the Truck Safe Board. And I've been working closely with operators that do livestock transport for their livelihood. So what things do they consider best practice when preparing animals for their intended journey? So the longer term plan for the Transport Hub is to keep providing up-to-date and new information related to all things livestock transport. It will help us build our industry transparency. It will be a single source information for new research that comes to hand, and we'll be also continually adding case studies of industry players, so from producers to feedlot operators to sale yard operators and also livestock transport operators. If there is information that you're seeking that's not on there, there will be opportunity for you to provide us feedback and recommendations of how we further value add to the Transport Hub. The major challenges around livestock transport is how animals are prepared, and there could be a multitude of factors at play, but first and foremost we need to ensure that animals are fit for the journey. If in doubt, leave them out. Another challenge that the industry has is particularly moving older animals and animals during times of drought. And decision-making processes are sometimes left too late. So there's some core information on there around how we can get those animals fit and strong to get them off the farm. Anecdotally, we know that livestock transport is done successfully. We hope over time that the Transport Hub will be a platform for us to build on industry transparency and performance, and rather based on anecdotes, we are demonstrating that if animals are prepared well for the intended journey, they will travel well.
I think the Transport Hub definitely fills a gap within the industry resources at the moment, because at the moment if you go to Google some information, you'll end up with about 8 or 10 different scenarios. So the Transport Hub will be able to pull all that information into one central point, so you'll be able to easily find the information that you require at the click of a button. A part of the supply chain that often gets forgotten about is the transport aspect. So you put a lot of time and effort into making sure your animals are fitting the grid and all these other requirements that you have as a producer to get the best value for your investment. We want to assist you with that. So if you can put 48 hours into that animal to prepare them for transport, the rest of our job is a lot easier. So, you know, we need that shared point of messaging that's consistent from one end of the supply chain to the other, and we start and finish the supply chain, so we need to be a part of that conversation, and if we can do that through the Transport Hub, I think that's a really positive move.
Without livestock transport, we don't have a supply chain. We need them and they need us. We have no other mechanism but the back of a truck to get our animals from A to B, so from farm to feedlot, farm to abattoir, farm to sale yard. All right, so that pretty much sums up what, so we launched the Transport Hub 12 months ago. So the critical point around all the information that we've pulled together is to look after driver and animal welfare, because they're intrinsically linked. So we need our drivers to be on the job to look after the animals, but we need the animals prepared so we can execute that part of the supply chain. So essentially we've pulled together this website with all the information as it relates to sheep, cattle and goats for different parts of the supply chain. So whether they're drought cattle, slaughter cattle, feedlot cattle, sheep, the same. So the Transport Hub was born. Encourage you to get on, have a look, always looking for feedback. So this is a living organism, again, using the buzzword of Patrick today. And we're always looking at ways to improve. So any ideas that you have, please bring forward. But I'll share with you some of the stuff that we've been working on. We've been telling the stories of people through all parts of the supply chain around different things that they do and how they prepare animals, because it's those that do this day in, day out that are going to be our most powerful information source. And we're very well aware that it's going to require more than a website to start to create the practice change that Sally was talking about that we need for to happen on farm as it relates to preparation and then subsequent the performance through the supply chain off the back of the truck. So we've been running several campaign activities over the last 12 months and you'll see that we do social media links. We were a big part of the most recent top 25 livestock transporters on Beef Central. And we are trying to include in every event the critical nature of what livestock transport does for our supply chain. We have also just launched another video 12 months on, so encourage you to get on and have a look, but that talks more about the complexities of how we prepare animals and the intrinsic nature again of preparing animals and respect for drivers, but also the important nature of that journey planning and the communication that we need to do to ensure that we're executing as we need to, because once again, we are very visible. That video encapsulates the 9 top livestock transporter tips here, so it all relates around planning journeys, communication, respect. You'll hear me harp on about that non-stop. So breaking it down a little bit further, the next steps that we're trying to do, particularly to our producer audiences and our agent audiences, is getting them to understand the impact of good versus bad preparation. And on this side, the bad preparation side, we're really starting to break that down and get them to understand that they're actually not getting paid for what's landing in the back of the crate. So what things can they do when preparing their animals to have the good side, where the sheep decks are dry, versus the bad side, where it's all being put out of the animal and either sitting in the back of the crate or dumped on the side of the road because of the lack of the infrastructure around effluent, but that's another story for another day. We also, believe it or not, have, so we've been developing some collateral, but I just wanted to share this with you that in all of this, and if you haven't got on crap loading ramps, I'd encourage you to do so, because we're trying to use that as a platform for, and a gentleman came to me last year and he'd started up this closed crap loading ramps Facebook page. And he said, "Oh, it's closed, Sharon." And I said, "What the hell for?" I said, "You've got to open it up so that our supply chain understands the poor infrastructure that's out there. It's not acceptable, it's not okay anymore. But this is what some of our drivers have to deal with. And WorkSafe is going to be part of some of the conversations that we're trying to have to lift the standard." So, and only a couple of weeks ago, I was sent, so we've just had these Transport Hub stickers created, and this is in a sale yard in Queensland. It could have been a disgruntled driver, a disgruntled agent, I don't know. But they had graffitied our sticker, and I would have loved to have seen him or her graffiti it, because it would have been a great conversation starter to understand why are they crossing that out, because there's obviously something that's struck a nerve with them. But anyway, so if there's any photos that you want to share with me and this sort of stuff, please send it my way, because we've got to open up the conversation. We've got to understand what the pain points are. Otherwise, we're going to go nowhere. As I said, we've developed some collateral. We're trying to do some targeted collateral. We don't want the magnets and all that sort of thing that get put in the show bags of these school events and some of our producer events and actually then go into the bin. We want collateral that's actually targeted and useful. So we've actually created a preparation checklist, which is a bit of a tick box exercise around all those things that you need to do to prepare your animals through to your yards, through to ringing the transport operator and the like, and how to best prepare them. So we know our messaging is on song. I've got extra time today, I've heard. Ashley's given it to me. So we know with our social media that we're on song. We've been getting good feedback. We know that we've got a lot of potential eyeballs through the strong impressions that we're getting, and the engagements, which is the click-throughs from the content on our website. Again, it's all about just making sure that our messaging is what is palatable and interested for producers, and it seems that we are doing okay, and that's supported by a fairly strong communications and extension program. So now just getting down to the nuts and bolts of what we're doing in this sustainability piece, and Patrick again talked more today about data and the vibe. And you will have said that in that video, anecdotally we know that we're doing a pretty good job, but it's the vibe. So it's a bit of a so what, now what? And I am putting pressure on the transport industry to start to report and record animal movement data, so it's not just a vibe. We're actually being accountable, we're being transparent. So we know that we're moving 65 million animals a year based off the NLAS database, but it's a bit of a so what, now what? How many of those animals are actually going off the back of the truck? Are there issues that are happening in transit? We know that that happens, but generally we know if animals are prepared well, they will travel well. Things do happen. We know that. If they do, report it, record it, call it out, address it, move on. We've also been doing a big piece in the sustainability grant where we've been unpacking the literature, looking at what animal welfare indicators we should be reporting at loading, in transit and unloading. Again, I would strongly advocate if we prepare animals well, they will travel well. There should not be a need to report animal welfare metrics in transit, but we need to look at what we should be reporting at unloading. We've been interrogating the literature, just making sure that we're on song with that assumption, and we are, but what we do know is the greatest impact on the welfare of an animal in this transport process comes back down to preparation, but it's that time off food and water. So what we want is those animals, again, to be prepared properly, fill them up with the right food, give them access to water, and then the rest will happen, but it will also minimise the impact of welfare of animals during transport. All this information is going to actually start to feed in to the sustainability framework longer term. We do have to it is a slow, drawn-out process because industry wants to do it, but we've just got to get the mechanism to report it. We have just created a Livestock Transport Sustainability Task Force. That's an end-to-end connection of the supply chain, but front and centre of that is livestock transport. So we're working together to look at what data we should be reporting and how we can record it. We are looking at, so Truck Safe Animal Welfare is the mechanism that will be doing that. That is actually going through a transition program at the moment where we are developing a COR link. That will be the platform where we start to report that animal movement data, so number of animals loaded, number of animals unloaded, downers, emergency kills, what have you, off the back of the truck. That program is being written now, and we hope to be able to have 6 months of data to report in next year's beef sustainability framework. Similarly, we're going to be reporting that information into the sheep. Other things that this traceability grant will deliver that will be beneficial to these sustainability frameworks is we're developing a best practice preparation matrix so that producers, rather than having to trawl through all the data on the transport hub, can say, I've got drought cattle or I've got pregnant cows, can I move them? And it just pops up some of the top things that they need to consider when preparing animals. We have developed, as part of this livestock transport task force, a strategy on a page supported by a roadmap. So literally, using another pun, the rubber is literally going to hit the road with delivery of that strategy. We are also opening up a fit to load review. That document's been a very, very powerful resource, but we feel that we've reached a bit of maturity now and we can start to value add to that document. Part of what the task force has been working on with me is development of this strategy, And the 3 key areas that we'll be working on is animal welfare, supply chain efficiency, and education at training. So again, I'll continue to harp on about the value of best practice preparation. We're looking at putting some dollar metrics around the value added of doing those things for our producers. And that's me.